Welcome to Toward a Quality of Life, coming to you in the beginning of April, the year 2006, out of the Roxbury studio of BNN TV, your local access cable television station, a very precious commodity in this city and in towns and cities across the United States. This is one of the few venues on anybody's station dial that can bring you uncorporatized information, uncorporatized ideas, ideas that are less laden with a lot of protective defense against the problems that are facing us together in this country that we're trying to hold together as a people and feel as though we are one United States. Which right now is not a feeling or an outlook that many of us are sharing or have. This is a call-in show, and from time to time the telephone number for the show will be put on the screen. So please call in. And when we do these shows, I will be brief about these, but I always like to begin reminding a couple of things. Number one, I can't swear on this television station, but I mean, I can't even use words. I'm prohibited from using words that are even not really swears, but just kind of vulgar, slangy words to a degree. But if I didn't have those prohibitions, believe me, I would use a lot of swear words interspersed between to give good adjectives to the kind of thing that I want to say. But I want to say that war, and you know what that word is, war is out of the question, and the one that's going on the cause of the United States is indeed a big tragedy. Tragedy for people getting killed from this country, people getting killed from that country, and the mess it's making of people's lives, the money it's costing our budget, money that we don't have for roads and highways and catastrophe victims in this country, education, computers in every school for every kid, the money we don't have, health care, that's just going down a black hole into the country of Iraq or the processes of pursuing that war. So it's a tragedy every which way. And we won't get into the lies and all the mistakes and all the confusion and ordeal surrounding this mess, which if you can think beyond pure black and white, like I hate somebody, let me go kill them, just like that, simplistically. I hate them. Do you really know much? No, I don't know much about it. I hate them. I can tell. Let's go kill them. If you're anything beyond all that, you know it's a terrible happening, and a sacrilege, in fact, an immoral thing. So we want to say war at any time is a must to be avoided, and the war that goes on in our name is a horrible thing. Number two, we want to say for the animals, we always want to bring up the animals. We never want to forget the animals. I can't even watch. Recently, they've been showing some clips, apparently, of the polar bears starving to death in Alaska because they can't get to the fish that they need because the ice is so melting that there aren't pieces of ice or extended ice for them to walk on to get out to where they need. And so you see bare bone thin polar bears. Now, the polar bear is a magnificent, magnificent creature. How much does it tear you apart to see a polar bear having to starve because of what humans are doing to the air and to the environment, causing him to not have food to eat? And then, of course, they're going to have to roam into the nearest place they can find food, which will be near some human community, and of course they would be a threat, and of course they will get killed. And it's all a travesty against life and against nature. I recently was reading of a professor whose ideas, and many people's ideas, who feel that everything in life has an equal place and an equal proportion and an equal balance to be. So that includes all life forms, not only humans. And a lot of people share this philosophy, and I believe I do too. Everything in its own way, in its own place, left to survive and thrive and not be devastated due to the disgusting acts of human beings who supposedly have brains but won't put their brains to the right use, won't put their brains to the good use, instead are off in technology and research and data and analyses and statistics and computers while the earth goes to hell. So, this week we bring out the polar bears. We know also frogs are extinguishing at an alarming rate, and of course scientists love to use some of features of frogs for medicine. Some have some chemicals on their bodies, or they emit chemicals that are very good medicinally, that they would like to do research on and so on. So that on that basis it's a concern, but it should be a deadly concern that frogs are disappearing from the earth. I think more than half the frog population has gone. They are the harbingers. They're in the water where everything is so polluted. They're being born without limbs, with weird faces, all kinds of mutated ways, and soon dying, of course. And you see many more animals being born in mutated ways, other species as well. I recall too, down in the Antarctica, southern hemisphere, down at the bottom, I was reading once quite a while ago that many of the animals are blind due to the ozone layer being depleted, that the sun is just coming through so harshly that animals, rabbits and so on, just bump into things. They're blind. They're blind from the sun's rays. So, very much to be considered of the animals. Please, love animals, love all the dogs and cats that you see on the street. If you need a dog or a cat, go to a shelter to get them. Don't buy these high-priced fancy dogs. They're wonderful, but get a good solid mutt that needs your help. If you need a kid, if you can't get pregnant and you need a kid, adopt a kid. If you have the funds to do it, adopt a kid. Take an unwanted kid if that's what you want to do in your life. So, okay, so this is for the animals. Let's not forget, and let's let the animals go out of the research laboratory. Let the animals go. We have here, I don't know if the camera can focus in on it, I don't know, oh, we're not focusing, I'm sorry. We have our we have our cameras standardized today. Excuse me, sometimes we have people that work the camera. Okay, now, I want to tell you too that we have a wonderful crew here on your local cable access television that care enough to do this kind of television, many of them doing it gratis like myself. They care enough to do this kind of television. Care about something, care about life, be aware, open your eyes and ears. Now let's look at some of the other topics. Oh, we have so many topics to talk about today. Okay, I said war, I said the animals, help the animals, buy a license plate in Massachusetts, that the part of which the money will go for animal causes. There's a license plate. They don't have enough money like some of the other groups do to put the plate on TV and advertise it. So when you get a license plate, get an animal license plate. Oh, they're going to do a shot of these 3 chimpanzees. Maybe you'll only get the center one. We'll hold it right here while you try to get the shot. Oops, there we go. They're straight. Oh, look at these. Look at these guys. You know, oh, wait. Look how I don't know the mirror image. I can't figure out how. You see how my brain can't do that? My brain can't figure out how to hold the card for a mirror image. I always had trouble with that. But anyway, these 3 lovely chimpanzees, lovely, spent years in cruel research, and they are now in a sanctuary living what could be the best, closest thing you could call normal life. They can never be normal, I'm sure, for what they have endured. But these fellows have been through years and years of gross research, and there they are now, saved by animal causes, people working mostly for free, But there are, for you young people listening and parents listening who have young people, lots of careers coming down the pike to be helping the earth and to be helping animals. Lots of careers coming down the pike. So please, if you love animals, think about that. And the third thing we always mention is the environment. We always want to say those three. War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Animals, we love them. We want to do everything to help them out because we're killing them and making their lives a living hell. In fact, some of them live with the idea that they're going to be extinguished. Some of them live knowing that the coyotes, they know that there's no land for them. They feel that pain in their heart. Remember, there was a coyote that no one could catch running in Central Park a little while ago, a few days ago. And he was really wily, Wily the coyote, only 1 year old. The poor thing somehow landed in Central Park. Who knows how, in New York. And, of course, all the big guys came out to catch him. Finally, they got him, and he evaded them. But finally, they got him with a dart. Then they brought him into a shelter or wherever, a clinic, and they looked at him, took all kinds of, measurements, whatever, from him. And then they were going to release him into the wild, and they went to put a chip in him so that they could monitor him. I mean, they need to do that in a way, but I sort of hate to see that happening to animals, getting chipped and tagged and then let out. Just let them out. That's what I say. But anyway, they went to put a tag in him, this perfectly okay animal, 1 year old that evaded everybody and everything. At the moment, they had to hold him down. And they say coyotes are very calm, and he was calm. They're calm animals. When they went to chip him, they didn't have him sedated. They had many people holding his legs, holding whatever. His heart stopped beating. He died. His heart stopped beating. So we are doing it. I mean, they live, these coyotes, they live, I mean, other animals, these foxes, they know what pathetic situation they're in. They know there's no place. You see the seagulls flying over, you hear, "Cook," I can't make their sound. It pains. You see them because they're probably saying, where the hell are we going to go? Where are we going to go? Listen to nature. There's no place left for the animals. Okay, now the environment. We always talk about the environment. Number one, the animal's the most moral, horrible thing, so it deserves the total priority. But the environment is the most critical thing without which we're going nowhere. Again, we're going to hell in a handbasket. And people that don't believe the environment is in terrible distress, I don't know, are they those simple thinkers again that just like to go to war too and say, I hate somebody, I don't really know much about the background, I just heard something that I should hate him, it gives me a reason to hate him, let's go kill him. Is this the same kind of thinking that people don't look around and see that the water's more poison, the air's more poison, contrary to what they tell you that the air is better, the food's more poison, more pesticides are being used, more radiation is leaking, more... on and on and on. Now, just to give you some practical examples, and don't forget to call in. This is a call-in show. Go ahead and call in. Just to give you some practical examples. This past week again, today we're listening on the news. Tornadoes ripping, stripping everything bare, bringing it to crumbles right across the Midwest, right through the heartland, and more to come. 58 tornadoes, many people killed. Catastrophe, they just had a whole series of horrible weather. Tornadoes and another series of horrible weather. Extreme weather. And people are... we never had this kind of stuff with such frequency and such intensity and such amount in one given episode. Hawaii had more rain. It broke the record. Phoenix broke the record for not having rain. And where's Phoenix going to go without rain? Phoenix is doomed the way it is. Lovely Phoenix as it is, it's doomed even with rain, the rain that it should usually get. Where is it going to go without the rain? Hawaii had too much rain, 7.5 feet. It just rained and rained. And again, they call it biblical. They called Katrina biblical. They're calling Hawaii biblical. And if that's the and I understand that word biblical. It's of biblical proportions. Things were just floating away in Hawaii. Everything was floating. in Hawaii. I think one place recorded 7.5 feet of rain in a matter of days. 7.5 feet. And where was it recently where the rain just wouldn't stop in the United States too? There was somewhere. It just rained and rained and rained. And you know what? People are seeding clouds. They're messing with the ionics of the cloud composition, trying to bring rain, stop rain, and so on. Another very, very wrong thing to be doing to the environment, which no doubt is helping in some of these situations where all the water just gets poured down and then no water is available. For example, in Kenya, in Middle Africa right now, where they're experiencing extraordinary drought conditions. Australia, just when I came to you a couple of weeks ago, was facing a Category 5 cyclone. I think it turned out to be a Category 4, but it wiped away everything in its sight. And just now, a few days ago, they're facing another Category 5 coming through Australia right on the heels of that. So I don't know. Oh, and it's been cold in Florida. When we've been getting warmer on some warm days, it's been getting cool in Florida. So I don't know what you need to know. I don't know if you can go down the expressway and see the air on a hot summer's day, or you'll smell in Boston when it gets very hot. You'll smell all the dirt in the air. When it's going to get humid, you'll smell it. It'll fill your lungs. And I don't know if all these allergies people are experiencing bother you. I don't know if the other day I was in a store and the people that work there were telling me that when they come in the morning, because I said I'm allergic, because when I walk in the store I can smell how the stuff doesn't do what the clothes are made of and what the structure is made of, the plastics and all the synthetics used in making the materials and the plastics around them. Bother me, but I mean, fortunately, I don't experience any symptoms, but I know I can tell it's not good for me. And I was mentioning this to some people because they were on the subject of allergies, and they were telling me, people who work there, that when they come in the morning, they have 2 hours to adapt. It hits them and they get allergic. I think their nose blocks up and they get typical allergic symptoms from this until their body adapts to it. So, you know, just being a reasonable, halfway aware, conscious person can tell you what these things are all about. Now, please call in. Please call in. There are some other topics I have here now that I'm going to try to cover. Time is going very fast. I wanted to say a little bit about Hillary. I wanted to say about the immigration issue, that we should be closing our borders, because people who, excuse me, I was just, there was some noise here. But anyway, people who are, of course, in to do us harm, common sense would dictate that the first thing you want to do in any issue of immigration, any issue, is you want to secure. How long do we have to wait? Do we have to plead to get our borders secure? And I don't mean building a wall either. Okay, so topics about Hillary. Close the borders. No wall, of course, but many countries successfully monitor their borders. Oh, we have some kind of noise going on in here from the telephone. It's not off. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Let me begin let me get myself together here. Yes, close the border. Have one language in the United States, one language, namely the English language, one language in the United States as far as what we all communicate with, what we have our signs in, what we do our voting on, what we read our books in when we go to school, and so on. France as a way of life. All the protesters in France that we could take a clue from, who are protesting, resisting to have their way of life brought into the techno age, where you're just expendable and have to work very many hours in a week just to survive, resisting to have a very different way of life that France has cultivated over its many years of existence. And then I also wanted to say, I have to say one word about the current government that sits in the executive office of Washington, D.C., how single-minded and unyielding it is to the people, the public, that supposedly elected them and so on, to the extent, showing the proof of this, to the extent that right now, when there has been a couple of changes, there have been a couple of changes of personnel in that executive area, many people are talking who are of the Republican Party, how this could be good, this could be useful, for a reason, okay, I'll just finish this sentence, for a reason that now maybe there can be communication between the executive office and the people in Congress, whereas there has been none to date, that they won't reciprocate and talk back and forth. Imagine that. Hello, caller.
There's been a while since I could get through to you, but you've left the subject, but I wanted to go back to it. It was about the coyote. Aren't there laws to protect wildlife out there when you're going to do things like sedate them, like give them those tags and all those kinds of things so that they're not harmed or they don't have heart attacks? Aren't there laws about that?
In this particular case, I guess this particular case would not have had a legal issue with that. I don't know the procedure exactly. It might be very simple, like a pinprick to put the chip in, you know, sort of like testing your blood for diabetes. So maybe they felt this was not a kind of operation or procedure that required any kind of anesthesia or sedation. And I think probably what did it, well, yeah, well, that's a good point. I think they learned a lesson. Hopefully they learned a lesson.
So that sounds like something maybe the lawmakers should consider, because they can't really anticipate what the reaction is going to be with the wildlife as they do that.
No, they can't, and I don't know if this has happened with other wildlife. I think if they were dealing with lions and tigers, they would be way more careful. They couldn't just hold them down unsedated, so those are probably sedated. They probably figured this is like sort of a nice coyote, but the thing that got him, I think, I'm assuming, I don't know the whole story, is everybody holding him down.
Right.
You know, might have caused his cardiac arrest.
Right, it's really tragic. It makes me wonder, because they do that to all kinds of birds and all kinds of animals like mammals that are in the water. So it makes me concerned about what's going to happen with the wildlife as they approach them this way, trying to track them.
Right. And
so it sounds like something that there needs to be a law instituted to protect them in this way.
Right. There are many laws on the books for how to treat animals. Not enough. I mean, their protection is very minor compared to what could be the case. It's very minor, but still there are very many laws on the books regarding you know, what to do with animals. The enforcement is very lax. There's not enough personnel to go around and watch the enforcement. But yeah, go ahead.
What kinds of things would you advise the viewers to do who are equally concerned about the protection of wildlife in this way? What kinds of advice would you give them? I'll let you answer. I'll hang on to listen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Okay.
I would hook up with, and every time my show airs on Wednesdays, 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. on Channel 23 TV, every time it airs, we have at the end of the show a couple of organizations that are true blue. They're not out there for money. And you can, I'm not saying to give money. I'm saying to hook up with Animal Welfare Institute or International Primate Protection League or even the New England Anti-Vivisection Society right here in Boston. Go on the internet. There are so many wonderful animal groups that that aren't always asking you for money. Of course, people contribute, but you can read all the stuff that they're tracking, no pun intended, but they keep so on top of all the problems, like the animals in Katrina, the animals in Africa, the animals after the tidal wave, elephants in Africa, you name it, animals in the laboratory. So they can open your eyes, because they're always, and what's going on in Congress, like when they want to lift the ban on killing our wild horses. There's been a big struggle to prevent people being able to slaughter our wild horses out in the West. You know, horses have been used by humans for every kind of hard labor and every other, racing and so on. And they're so expendable, it's so pathetic to think that they can just be driven off their range and some cockamamie idea made up, or excuse made up, of why they can't be there, and herded somewhere where they can all be corralled and taken for horse meat, or used in some other profane way. But anyway, so far there's been a lot of headway trying to protect these wild animals that go through extraordinary torturesome circumstances with what happens to them out west. But anyway, I'd say hook up with these organizations, and we have the address at the end. It will show in the edited versions. Once this show, it may not show today, but it will show most of the times on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Or go on the internet and say animal help organizations, whatever. Google it up, and you can see what's going on. And then there's a lot of letter writing. You have to help by doing letter writing on all these things that they're trying to do. Get the message across so that the legislators hear about it, and so on. So much progress has been made, but so much more needs to be made by animal activists, and most of them working for free or for very small money from every level of education, working, devoting their lives to helping animals. There's literally hundreds of thousands of them around the globe. Just can't stand what's happening to animals, and people working for the environment. But like I say, as time goes on, for parents and for children and for parents who have kids and for the young people themselves, I'm sure that careers going into animal life, natural life, are going to become more needed and a good thing to be pursuing. So that's where there's so much you can do. And also, if you see something, talk about it. Tell your neighbor if you see a cat that needs to be spayed or is starving in the neighborhood. And be careful, too. We don't just want to dump animals in the shelters. We don't want to do that either. That's horrible. Speaking of the stress, like the caller talked about, of the coyote, all the stress animals go through when they're brought into a shelter or when they live in research. Imagine every day they're in a cage. They can't get out. If you go there, their eyes might follow you. You know, just they know the desperate situation they're in. They can smell the death. They can sense the death. They know they're in a really unlucky circumstance. And they live with that stress in the shelter till they're euthanized, or in rare instances adopted. So please adopt a pet if a pet you want. Please, if you love animals, if you have a heart. And in research, like those chimps we showed before, they live for years in a cage as big as their body, and things done to them and tortured. Imagine. I remember a lab when I was coming up in my studies that someone was sort of laughing, who worked in the lab, saying how when the lab door opens, or when they can hear the footsteps coming, there were dogs, I think, in the labs, they defecate and urinate. Imagine that they lived in this kind of terror. So the stress. And once I saw a coyote in an area, in a rural area here in Massachusetts, it panged my heart. There was a field, there were lots of fields, but all the trees were getting torn down, and all these homes have gone up on this country road, all home after home, and they clear the land of the trees. But there was a field or two, and it was sort of sunset time, and I was driving my car along, and there trotted a coyote, and he sort of looked back at me. I'll never forget it. And, it almost was like, I know you win. But with all his wiliness, he knew the position. What field did he have to go to except to try to eat the neighbor's pet? Okay, many, many laws. We need more green. Someplace I saw in the news recently, where was it? Southbridge, Massachusetts. Thank God, let's lighten up here. Is making green areas, is leaving areas alone. No, you don't just tarmac every place with a parking lot. Oh, like Joni Mitchell says, don't it always go to show you don't know what it is till you've got. They took paradise and put up a parking lot. Are those the words, or are those the words? Okay. Now, well, we're really going fast on time here. Please call in. Let's get cooking here. Well, let's get cooking, no pun intended. I'm Julia Child, and I will give you a lesson in cooking right now. I love Julia Child. Hers is a great story to hear. Julia Child's life story. What a wonderful story. And I'll tell you something about Julia Child that was conveyed by her personal assistant who lived with her, cooked for her, and so on. She said that Julia had kidney problems. I don't know if she was on dialysis. She might well have been. And she wasn't getting better. She wasn't getting worse, but she wasn't getting better. She was in her early 90s. And so her life was like going to the hospital, being sickly. She couldn't do what she used to do. She used to like to go about to the restaurants, taste the food, check things out, bon vivant, and just love to, get people to love and live and appreciate. And so anyway, then some test came in and that required she have some further procedure at the hospital. And the hospital called and said to her, you've got to come in and we've got to do this to you and you'll be in the hospital for X amount of time. And she asked the physician, reportedly, if I go through this, will I be any better than I am now? And he said, no, you won't. It was some bad thing, but she wasn't going to get better. So she said, no, I'm not going to go do that. And then that night, she went to sleep and she died. She sort of decided, if this is my life, I'm going to die, as far as I know the story. And I will tell you that her last meal from her assistant was French onion soup. She had a bowl of homemade French onion soup. Julia Child. And guess what? Julia Child is a female coming up in a generation when females did not succeed virtually, succeeded marvelously, and really made her mark seemingly in an effortless way. And guess what? Her husband promoted her left and right, telling her, Julia, you can do it. Her husband was the driving force behind her. And I would like to say, I was just talking about this with someone last night, that when I was affiliated with males, no harm intended, the driving force was that I pretty much not do anything on my own. And I subscribe to that dictum, if you will, believe it or not. So that's how I was many generations removed from Julia Child. I came up when, at least in my life experience, it was more told to me by people I was associated with to not move ahead, to sort of prohibit and curtail how far I would go or what I would do. Now, so Julia Child and the cooking lesson. Now, the last time we were on the air, I brought up that the fact that I don't eat from cans, and that I sometimes am tempted or in a pinch, and I have a reserve can of Campbell's cream of mushroom soup to eat. And we were talking about blood pressure and diabetes and general health. And I was saying that there were so many ingredients on the Campbell soup and how bad it was for you and how tasty it is. And I wanted to bring out today a little more concretely what exactly is in the Campbell soup. And it's only, let's see, a half a cup is only 70 calories, so it's not very caloric. That's about, let's see, 175 calories and about 70, no, not even 60 grams of fat, which is not too terrible. But the salt, 900 milligrams of sodium, right up there with most soups would be that much sodium. And I don't know how much is the level of sodium you're supposed to have in a day, but this may be like more than enough sodium in a day. And look what's in here. Water mushrooms, modified food starch, not just food starch, modified. Cream, but guess what? The cream contains following ingredients: vegetable oil, corn, cottonseed, canola, soybean, partially hydrogenated cottonseed. Cottonseed's a very bad oil, very bad. And soybean. So it's not just cream. What is that doing in the cream, I ask you? Salt, of course, sweet cream, buttermilk powder, not buttermilk, powder, cornstarch, wheat flour, monosodium glutamate, MSG, which really bothers me when I trip upon it in a Chinese place. I try to avoid that, but once in a while it's happened. And monosodium glutamate does not go well with me. I feel like my blood vessels get engorged and like it, you know, brings the blood to my head or something. It feels awful. Soy protein concentrate, potassium chloride, that's a preservative more or less, not good. Maltodextrin, I don't know what that is, maltodextrin, autolyzed yeast extract, flavoring, which contains milk. It doesn't say what else is in the flavoring. Dehydrated onions, dehydrated. They're tasty, but what's wrong with onions? Flavoring, again, doesn't say what's in it. It's mentioned 2 times, but it doesn't tell you what's in it. Imagine that. They can write flavoring and not tell you what's in it. Dehydrated garlic, not garlic. Butter, cream powder. Enzyme modified butter, modified of course. That's what gives you all this smooth, creamy consistency that's so satisfying to your comfort food, to your sleazy piggy self like me that loves to just sit there and bask in the glory of how delicious their food is. Non-fat dry milk, lipolyzed butter oil, oleic acid, not good for you, butter oil, lactic acid, and you know butter oil reminds me of that stuff in the movie theaters. Did you ever see the oil that's used for popcorn? I remember once, I used to get a lot of stomach pain from eating popcorn in a theater. What's better than a big bucket of popcorn in a theater? Fantastic. I mean, do we know how to live or do we know how to live? And I remember, I always get stomach pain from it, but I loved it so much. That's what you've got to learn. If something causes your stomach pain, a must to avoid. A must to avoid. No, no, no. You don't take the Tums. You don't take the pills and eat it anyway like TV shows you. A must to avoid. But I was looking, I remember once, I don't know if it's still this way. I saw the grease they used on the butter, and it looked exactly like axle grease looks in a mechanic's shop. That dark orange, like grease that you can, like, you know, it's solid. I was like, wow, that was what was going on the popcorn. Butter flavor, enzyme modified butter, acetic acid. Those are all the things that are in this little lonely soup of Campbell's cream of mushroom, which they're telling you is 98% fat-free, so then maybe you think it's good for your heart, but in the meanwhile you're getting tons of sodium and hydrogenated oil, which is very bad for your heart, and getting high blood pressure from it, so that this won't help your heart one bit, and all this other crap which is extracted, modified, processed, dehydrated, and so forth and so on. So it's kind of fake food. It's all American, though. It's definitely all American food. And by the way, I don't like to call the United States America. I like to call it United States, but sometimes I have to use the word all American because that's an adjective that describes a kind of style that we live. The reason I like to call it United States is once when I was a teacher, someone from Brazil spoke up. I was using the word America, and he said, well, we're America too. And I always remembered that. Okay, now, what else is wrong with this can? Let's have a quiz. Call up. Tell us what else is wrong with this can. Andy Warhol didn't get it right? No, that's not what's wrong with this can. It's in a can. It's dead food. It's processed food, vacuum packed, not fresh. And it's in a can, and the can is made of alloy metal. It's not stainless steel. Stainless steel is very good. It's used in pots and so on because it doesn't exchange the metal. It does good with heat conveyance, and the metal doesn't bleed into it like the aluminum does. And this metal, I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe someone can look it up and call in and tell us what cans are typically made of. But these alloys exchange with the food. This is not a good metal. So this metal is having reaction with the food in there. And I guarantee you that food, if this batch were made fresh and you tasted it, and then you tasted the one that's been packed and sitting and in this can, there will be a different taste from the can. Okay, now we have a couple of more cans here, and I brought them because these are the cans on my shelf. This can is a mistake. It's got peach halves in heavy syrup, and by the way, the heavy syrup peach halves brings a lot of extra calories, empty calories to your diet. If you want good food, you'll love to drink the syrup, but that's where you'll pack on your calories. And some of the sugar has gone into the peaches too. And of course they have to use a lot of sugar because if you notice, peaches are not juicy sweet. Although I often wonder if the manufacturers who own the food, and that's a big problem, a few people like Midland Archer Daniels owning our food supply in the United States and around the world, owning our food and owning our water, and owning what can be done with the food and how much it will cost and how much they will give you. You will also notice that the amounts that people give you in the boxes, the bags, the cans gets less. They've got ways of eliminating giving an amount to you and saving much money in volume at the other end. So this is very dangerous to have our food supply controlled as it is in a few hands. And they advertise on TV. You'll see them especially on the morning news shows on a Sunday morning. They used to advertise a lot, not so much lately. Calling themselves supermarket to the world. Supermarket, if this is, and the time will come, as it almost is in some stores, where you can't go in and get ingredients you may want. You'll only be able to get it this way, with the salt, with the sugar in the can on the shelf. Okay, so this is a mistake because it's in a can, bought by my human nature, wanting to eat this, needing to have something on reserve when I needed some kind of a snack. And I've now substituted it with peaches put in plastic jars with a lid. And the plastic's no good either. But I think, I'm not sure, it's a step up from the can. The plastic is lousy too. So not good, not good. And let's see, this is half a cup, 3.5. So let's see, this is about almost 2 cups. So this is 350 calories if you drink the liquid. If you don't drink the liquid, you'll probably have very many fewer calories, even though there will be that sugar in the peaches. And you know what else, too, you have to worry about? You have to worry about whether what they say is truly the calories is what it is. I question that sometimes too. This is an open question. And just like we saw in this Campbell's soup can, they put down flavoring 2 different times and don't tell you what's in the flavoring, for example, and that passes. Now, this is supposed to be a healthier version of canned goods, which I have on the shelf when I'm in a pinch and I can't be rushing out to get food at the store, get food at a restaurant, which is very hard to do when you've got issues like I do with food. And so I keep this lentil soup, for example, which is called an organic soup, and it says no salt added. So the salt comes to 45 milligrams instead of 900 milligrams of salt added, I guess, in this. Or it's in the ingredients that are added. And anyway, what's wrong with this can? Same thing that's wrong with these cans. It's in a can. It's dead food. It's not fresh lentil soup. And I eat it. And do all these things cause cancer? Do all these things cause us to be less than purely wholesome and healthy? You bet they do. And we're dropping like flies. I see that we're coming to the end of our show here for today. I'll be back here in 2 weeks from today, the first and third Mondays of every month, 2 p.m. I hope by then you'll have some thoughts or comments. My email is available through my website. Email me if you didn't want to call but have something to say. All comments are welcome. So, thank you. Best of everything to you. And let's live a little for real. Goodbye.
the cares that were around me all the week are gone like a gambler's lucky streak. When we're out together dancing cheek to cheek, heaven, hey, I'm in heaven. My heart beats so that I can hardly speak.